Maya grew up in a small town where the streets smelled of wet earth and the mornings carried the sound of birds singing over the river. She had lived with her mother and younger brother in a modest house painted pale blue with peeling edges and a garden that her mother tended with devotion. Every day was a rhythm of chores, schoolwork, and little moments of laughter when her mother cooked something sweet or when her brother tried to make her laugh with silly faces. Maya had always been serious and thoughtful. She noticed things other children ignored: the way the wind shook the branches, the way people's eyes avoided certain topics, and the way her mother sometimes stared out of the window lost in a memory. Maya often wondered what her mother thought about. She never asked because she knew some thoughts were not meant to be shared, but she carried them inside her like a hidden weight. Maya was 14 when her father left one rainy evening. He did not say goodbye. He did not pack anything. He simply walked out into the night and never returned. The police said it was likely he had started a new life somewhere else, a new family, perhaps a job in another city. But for Maya and her mother, it felt like a wound that would never heal. She remembered standing by the doorway in the rain, watching his silhouette vanish. She felt both anger and relief because the house had been quiet yet tense before he left, and now it was quiet and empty, but peaceful in a strange way. Maya learned to carry responsibility early. She helped her mother with the household work, cooked meals, cleaned dishes, and tutored her brother in his schoolwork. She became the quiet anchor of the family, while her mother returned to sewing and small jobs that brought in just enough money to keep them alive. As she grew older, Maya discovered a passion for teaching. She loved helping children learn reading and writing and math. She believed that education was a door to a world that was bigger than their small town, and she dreamed of becoming a teacher in a city that she had only visited a few times but whose streets seemed full of promise. Her friends often teased her for being too serious for her age, but Maya did not mind. She knew that seriousness came from paying attention to the small things and seeing the world clearly. She began volunteering at the local school, helping children after classes, and slowly built a reputation for her patience, kindness, and understanding. One day, Maya received a letter in the mail. It was unusual because the envelope had a seal she did not recognize. She opened it carefully and found a letter from a lawyer in the city. It said that a distant relative had passed away and left her a sum of money in trust. The letter explained that the trust could be claimed if she moved to the city and contributed to the education of underprivileged children. The amount was enough to support her family and herself for many years, and it included a small house and an opportunity to study further. Maya was stunned. She had never met this relative. She had barely heard of them, and yet they had planned something for her decades ago. She read the letter again and again, trying to understand if this was real or some mistake. Her mother grew old but proud of her daughter's achievements. Her brother finished his studies with Maya's support and became a teacher himself, continuing the legacy she had started, and whenever Maya looked into his eyes, she saw the same determination she had once carried through her hardest days. She realized that the cycle of hope never ends. It simply moves from one person to another through small acts of care and courage. Maya began teaching at a small school in a poor neighborhood where the children came hungry, tired, and often uninterested in lessons. She remembered her own childhood, and she approached them with patience, understanding, and love. She stayed after school to tutor the slow learners, helped arrange meals for those who came hungry, and spoke to their parents about the importance of education. It was exhausting, but it was rewarding, and slowly, she saw changes in the children's behavior. They laughed more, they listened more, they began to dream, and Maya felt a deep satisfaction that she had never known. She also started attending evening classes herself, studying educational methods and child psychology. She was determined to be the best teacher she could be. She did not want to waste the opportunity she had been given. As months passed, Maya's life began to settle into a rhythm. The city no longer seemed so overwhelming. She found friends who shared her passion. She explored streets and parks and libraries she had never seen before. She sent money back home to her mother and brother, helping them with bills and small improvements to their home. She bought books for her brother and school supplies for children in her old neighborhood. She often thought about the woman she had been when she left and smiled at the courage she had discovered in herself. She knew the road ahead would still be challenging, but she had learned that life had a way of rewarding those who stayed committed and true to their responsibilities and dreams. One day a parent came to her quietly and told her that Maya had changed their child's life. The boy had been struggling to read. He had been silent and withdrawn, and now he spoke, laughed, and read with confidence. The mother cried and hugged Maya, and in that moment Maya felt that all the effort, the sacrifice, the sleepless nights had been worth it. She realized that giving to others gave life meaning more than any money or comfort she could ever receive, and she understood that her relatives' trust had been more than just financial. It had been a chance to discover her own strength and purpose. Maya continued her work for years, building programs, helping children who had no hope, helping mothers understand the value of education, helping communities see the power of small acts done with love. She became known not for the money she inherited, but for the life she had given to others. She never returned to the small town for long periods. She visited often, sending money and teaching her brother and friends, but her heart remained in the neighborhoods where children laughed because she had taught them to dream, and Maya knew that she had become the person she had always hoped to be, someone strong, kind, and capable of carrying love through every act of life. Time passed, and Maya found herself more deeply tied to the school and the lives of the children who studied there. Each morning she would walk through narrow lanes to the small building that served as their classroom, its walls painted with faded drawings of flowers and letters. The sound of children laughing was the first thing that greeted her. It made her feel at home. She often thought that perhaps this was what her unknown relative had wanted to give her, not wealth, but the power to make a difference. Yet as months turned into years, Maya began to feel the weight of loneliness. She had dedicated herself so fully to others that she had little time for herself. She watched her friends marry, build families, travel, yet she remained in the same small rented apartment, surrounded by books, lesson plans, and dreams that belonged to others. Sometimes at night, she would sit by her window looking at the city lights and wonder if her life had meaning beyond her work. One evening after class, a man came to meet her. He was in his mid-30s with tired eyes and a gentle smile. He introduced himself as Arjun, a journalist working on a story about education in underprivileged areas. He wanted to understand the struggles teachers faced. Maya agreed to talk. They sat in the school courtyard under the lone tree, and she told him about the children, about their hunger, their laughter, their strength, and their pain. Arjun listened carefully. He asked questions that made her think deeply about why she did what she did, and for the first time Maya felt that someone truly understood her, not just as a teacher, but as a person with dreams and doubts. When the interview was published, it was titled "The Woman Who Teaches Hope," and though it brought her attention and praise, it was the friendship with Arjun that touched her most. They began meeting often. Arjun would bring her books or articles to read, and Maya would tell him stories from the classroom. He admired her simplicity and her quiet courage. She admired his empathy and his honesty. Over time, their friendship deepened into something softer, something unspoken but real. One evening, when rain began to fall and the city lights blurred through the window, Arjun looked at her and said, "Maya, do you ever wish for more?" She smiled faintly and said, "I used to, but now I think more means different things for different people. For me, it means knowing that I did something right before I leave this world." He nodded, and for a moment neither of them spoke, just listened to the sound of rain against the window. But life does not stay peaceful for long. A few weeks later, Maya received a letter from the education board. The funding for their school was being cut, and the building might be closed unless they found sponsors. She felt her world tremble. Everything she had built, her purpose, her children's dreams, were at risk. She tried every possible way to gather support. She wrote letters, met officials, pleaded with local leaders, but nobody seemed to care. Arjun helped her write an article highlighting the importance of the school. It gained attention, but not enough. Maya began using her own savings from the trust to keep the school running. She sold furniture and skipped meals, but she refused to let the school die. Her colleagues warned her that she could not sustain it alone, but Maya believed that if she gave up, then she would betray everything she stood for. Her health began to decline from stress and exhaustion, yet she hid it from everyone, even Arjun. She still smiled every morning and greeted her students with warmth, even when her eyes showed fatigue. One evening, as she walked home, she fainted on the roadside. A passerby helped her to a clinic, where she was told she was suffering from severe anemia and overwork. The doctor advised rest and nutrition, but rest was a luxury Maya could not afford. When Arjun found out, he was furious. He said, "You are destroying yourself for people who may not even remember you one day." She replied softly, "Maybe they will not remember my name, but they will remember how to hope, and that is enough." Arjun fell silent. He realized that her strength was both her gift and her burden. In the months that followed, Maya's story spread through local news. Her determination inspired others. A few donors reached out, and the school received enough funding to stay open. The joy on the children's faces when she told them was worth every hardship she had endured. Arjun held her hand that evening and said, "You saved them, Maya. You saved something that should have never been lost." She looked at him and said, "Maybe it was never me. Maybe it was the trust that gave me a reason to keep going. Maybe it was fate." He smiled and said, "No, Maya, it was you." As time went on, their bond deepened, and one day Arjun asked her to marry him. She hesitated. She feared that love might distract her from her purpose, but he told her that love could also be strength, that together they could build something even greater. After many sleepless nights, she said yes. Their wedding was simple, attended by her students and colleagues, held in the courtyard of the same school that had shaped her destiny. They planted a small tree that day, and Maya told the children that one day when they were grown, they would sit under its shade and remember that everything good takes time to grow. Years passed, the school expanded, and Maya became its head teacher. Arjun continued his journalism and often wrote stories about education and human courage. They had a daughter who grew up surrounded by books and laughter and the sound of chalk against blackboards. Maya taught her that kindness was more valuable than anything else in life. She often sat under the tree they had planted and watched her students play, remembering her own journey from the small blue house by the river to this place of hope. She sometimes thought of her father who had walked away and wondered if he ever regretted it, but she had stopped holding anger. She had learned that forgiveness was freedom, and that peace did not come from money or success, but from knowing that she had given love where it was needed most. Her mother grew old but proud of her daughter's achievements. Her brother finished his studies with Maya's support and became a teacher himself, continuing the legacy she had started, and whenever Maya looked into his eyes, she saw the same determination she had once carried through her hardest days. She realized that the cycle of hope never ends. It simply moves from one person to another through small acts of care and courage.